Amphibia is coming to an end. At the time of me recording this video, it's just the day after the airing of Newts with Tights and the other episode, what was its name? Flight or Flight. And so essentially we only have 3 episodes left of Amphibia before the show ends with the finale, The Hardest Thing. And it is a pretty emotional thing because Amphibia has come a long way. I mean, I still remember the day when it was greenlit back in 2018 alongside the Owl House. Like, it wasn't that huge of a news at the time because everyone was still excited about, the Gravity Falls graphic novel, which had just been, formally revealed at the time. And, there was the box set that was still coming out. So there's still a lot of Gravity Falls hype going on at the time. So Amphibia and the Owl House being greenlit wasn't as well seen at the time, but as time's gone on, the show's just come a long way. And I remember when the first episode aired, I thought back then that I would be a bigger fan of the Owl House than I would be of Amphibia. I thought Amphibia was not too grand of a show, not going to be something all that interesting to watch, but I was so wrong. Here we are. And Amphibia, I'd argue, is probably my favorite Disney show right now after Gravity Falls. It is just insane how far the show's come, and it is, I think the episode that probably did that for me was a Reunion. I think a lot of fans remember Reunion back when it came out. That was a crazy episode. That ending was just so emotional. But I think there is another episode of Amphibia which does the same job, and it's an episode and one particular scene in that episode that really just changed everything. Up until this episode, Amphibia was already a really good show, but this one episode just changed the show for the better in so many ways. It got everyone just excited. It was just we suddenly realized that, this is not just a funny little show about frogs. It's a very emotional and very complicated story that's being told with some really big implications to come. And I guess you can already tell from the title, from the thumbnail or whatever, that the episode in question is Hopping Mall. This episode came out in September of 2020, so just at the end of that summer when Gravity Falls, when Amphibia and the Owl House just both aired at the same time. That was a crazy summer. Everyone was going nuts. Boat shows were back. That was the year of just so much excitement. 2020 was, for how horrible of a year 2020 was, the animation game was just incredible. And this was towards the end, the final crescendo of that summer. And Hopping Mall airs just a little after. So the Owl House had finished its first season, so Amphibia was going on alone just prior to its next hiatus. And things, this episode just, wow. If you've already forgotten, the episode itself is not too eventful. It's just a simple episode related to Anne trying, Anne and the planters going on an exploration of Newtopia, and they're just, checking out the various places and the malls and stuff, and Anne decides she wants to get a present for her mom when she returns back to Earth. So she goes around looking for something that could do it, and she comes across this really cool gift that she could give, but there's a whole event that she has to partake in with shopping carts and stuff. It's basically a demolition derby, and they go through that, and it's crazy stuff happens, and eventually Anne doesn't win it, but she ends up she does win, but she ends up giving it to another parent who's there, and they're able to make amends and that stuff, and Anne eventually gets a gift for her to give that she can give to her mom eventually from the kid, the other parents, mom, kid. So overall, as you can tell from my really complicated, confusing summary, is the overall episode wasn't too eventful. There wasn't much that happened in the majority of the episode. It's a great episode, it's a memorable episode, but what makes Hopping Mall special, and what ultimately made it the episode that everyone knows and loves, is what happens in the final 90 seconds.
I just had the worst dream. You up, Anne? Anne?
Those final 90 seconds of Hopping Mall changed everything about Amphibia, in my opinion. Because let me just set the scene for you. Amphibia at this point had really started to gain an audience. Like, the first season of Amphibia had aired really relatively too quickly. Like, Disney had just bursted it out too quickly. Like, it was not something that even Matt Braley has gone on record as saying that he wasn't a fan of the way Disney aired the first season of Amphibia. And at this point, Amphibia had also had a bit of a struggle in the summer, like, because the Owl House kind of stole the spotlight in many ways. So, like, there were some big episodes for Amphibia that happened. For example, the Gravity Falls homage episodes. So that, and the introduction of Marcy, and those episodes are well remembered and well liked. But if you look back at that time, it's like there wasn't that much excitement for those episodes compared to what the Owl House had. And that's no fault with the Owl House, obviously, because the Owl House is a great show that was having its own exciting like episodes. But because they aired at the same time, the spotlight kept being stolen from one show to the other, and that's the same thing that's happening right now. It's like the Owl House and Amphibia are coming out at the same time, and a lot of Amphibia's possible success and individual like popularity is kind of being taken away by the Owl House as well. And again, it's no fault of the Owl House's, because the Owl House has its own story to tell and its own show and its deserving audience. But because the shows are airing at the same time, there's always sort of like this conflict of interest, if that makes sense. But ignoring, so like at that point, but at this point when Hopping Mall aired, the Owl House had already gone on hiatus for its first season, so Amphibia was alone in terms of the only show that was still airing at the time of the two. And for that reason, I think Hopping Mall stuck around a lot more, because there was no Owl House episode to take the interest and the conversation away. And it was probably good, because this episode was just everything. And those final 90 seconds of that episode made Amphibia go from being what, in my opinion at that time, was a good show to possibly one of the best shows that I've ever seen. And you probably already know what happens in those 90 seconds, but let me just go through them word for word. It's Sprig is asleep, and he wakes up having a bit of a nightmare, and he looks around to see if Anne is up and notices that she's outside on the balcony looking out with her present that she got. He goes there and talks about how the present is really pretty and how her mom is really going to enjoy it. At that point, he asks Anne what her mom is like, and Anne explains how she's a really kind person, but also very strict, and how she wanted her to study more instead of goofing off and around like that. And so I know that's actually kind of relatable to me. Yeah. And yeah, she talks about how, like, you know, she often annoyed her by singing these goofy Thai love songs and stuff in the kitchen while cooking, and just like, and how she would never listen, but how, like, in the current moment, like, she would give anything to hear her singing right now. And, you know, she starts tearing up at the thought, which she then immediately tries to conceal when, you know, she remembers that Sprig is around. And, you know, she just looks really heartbroken and just depressed about, you know, and it's just showing, like, you know, as much as Anne probably enjoys Amphibia, she does miss home, and she wants to go home, and she just wants the adventure to be over, because, you know, she's homesick. And I mean, I don't blame her, because, you know, I get homesick really easy as well, and, you know, the sight it probably just made her heartbroken. So, you know, and at first glance at this point at the scene, you would assume that this probably would be a situation where Anne is just homesick, and what might occur next is that Sprig probably tries to help her feel better, saying that, you know, that it's almost over, we're almost home, like, we're nearing the end of the adventure soon, yeah, you'll be heading home. Like, you might think that that's what's going to happen. But then Sprig drops the bombshell that really just changes everything and leads to where we are now. And he mentions how when he and Polly were younger, their parents died. And the tone of the entire scene just changes. Like, you can see it in Anne's face. Like, she goes from being depressed about her own situation to realizing just how horrible and heartbreaking what happened with Sprig was. And, you know, Sprig then mentions, you know, is it possible to miss someone that you never actually knew? And, you know, because he doesn't even remember what his mother looks like. given how long it's been. And he jokes about how like that's crazy, like of course you can. At that moment, Anne runs in and just jumps in and hugs him, just nothing holding back, just hugs. And that moment Sprig allows himself to just let go of his persona of not being affected by it, and just cries. And that's where the episode ends, and we go into a shot going up and looking at the sky and the moon, and then the end credits roll with their unique one-off end credits with that beautiful piano music, that little bit of music that just remembering it, just oh my god. I remember when I first saw this scene and I was just shocked. I just could not believe what I had just seen. Like, this from Amphibia, the show that just a few episodes earlier was having us laugh at the fact that a Stan frog was appearing in Frog Seuss. And now we have this, that Sprig's an orphan. The last 90 seconds of this episode have more meaning than most of the TV shows out there nowadays, or the movies that come out nowadays. And I'm not even trying to be like a stereotypical stupid critic on YouTube, but like, come on, like these 90 seconds hit harder than most movies out nowadays, and I just cannot begin to describe how just insane this was when it first aired. And like, Amphibia just it breaks you up at this moment. Like, how do you even describe it? Like, there is so much going on in the scene beyond just what Anne and Sprig say, because it's not just what they say that makes this scene so beautiful, it's also just the visuals and the sounds that you see. Like, you have them at their hotel sleeping, like things look like they're going good, but then we see them outside in the balcony. And honestly, for me, like, I love scenes like this, like nighttime ambient scenes. Like, I've always been a huge fan of this stuff. Like, I think like kind of like in that in Double Dipper, like at the end of it when him and Tyrone are up on the roof of the shack and they're just contemplating about their chances with Wendy, and it's just like you have the nighttime ambience of them looking out at the stars of Gravity Falls and the forest, and just the beauty of that scene, the ambience of it. It's like, and then Tyrone dies and Dipper's just there watching in the nighttime of it all, and it's a beautiful scene. It's a beautiful moment, and that's exactly what the scene in Amphibia is. Like, Hopping Mall's final scene is just so beautiful. It's like we have Anne and Spriggs like just contemplating about their own life and just their backstories, and we have them on the balcony looking out in the stars of a utopia, the city. And it's a huge, it's very different to that scene in Double Dipper, because like in Double Dipper it's like Gravity Falls, it's the country, it's like the rural landscapes of the Pacific Northwest, it's nature everywhere. And here it's a city, and it's that lo-fi city type vibe that it's so nostalgic-y feeling, but you just get the sense of just beauty to it. There is a beautiful, like that shot where like Anne is talking about how like her mom wanted her to study more and not goof off. It's like it pans out and we see them looking out at Utopia, the wall, and then the ocean beyond, and the islands in the distance of the Amphibia mainland, and it's beautiful. Like, the visuals of this scene is just beautiful. It's like it kind of just makes you wish that Disney would approve an Amphibia art book. I mean, if Gravity Falls can't get one, Amphibia should. And it's beautiful. Like, everything about that scene and the shot and the lighting, it's just perfect. And I mean, I'm not even like an expert on this stuff, and like it gets you. It works. That's what makes this scene so beautiful. The visuals on top of the dialogue. And then of course there's the sounds. Like the sounds of crickets in the background, the ambient nighttime feel. It's just like, it's peaceful. It's calm. It's the perfect scene to do this. Everything just feels right. There's no crazy monster approaching. There's no screaming. There's no energy of excitement. It's just calm. It's normal. It's quiet. It's a quiet scene. It's not an insanely hectic scene. There's nothing insane about it. It's just calm. You have Anne and Sprig just there contemplating and talking about their families and just how much they miss their parents. Like Anne talking about how much she misses her mom, and Sprig revealing how he doesn't have one and how that affects him. And the implications of that go on beyond that point, because, we learn more about what happened to Sprig and Polly's parents and after the rains, when, we learned that they were killed. And we learn how they died, and, what that scene, like in After the Rains, that made Amphibia just, that is a story for another time as well. But like, that scene would not exist without Hopping Mall. This scene at the end of this episode just gets you. It's so unexpected, and that's what the thing about the scene is. Like, you don't see it coming at first when you are watching the episode. You think like, oh, this is just a goofy another like maybe just like a extra episode that before they go meet Andreas. Like they're just having fun looking around the town and just having the time of their lives. It's just like it doesn't feel like this is like supposed to be like crazy or anything. It's just normal. It's calm. There isn't anything that gets you ready for this. You think that it's not going to be an episode that has something like this, and then it does. It just throws you in it, and you're left waiting to see what happens. And yeah, it gets to you. It is a perfect scene from an episode you wouldn't expect, and that's what makes Amphibia so phenomenal. It's just like this sort of reminds me of like the ending of Gravity Falls season 1, like of Gideon Rises, like when the episode is ending and you think that okay, everything's back to normal, there isn't anything else going on happening, like the season's ending with just a simple like Dipper and Mabel are back and stuff, and then boom, the portal, like Stan goes down into the basement and we learn what's there, and the portal is activated, and that sets up what season 2 is going to be about, and you don't see it coming until it happens. And that's what this scene is. You don't see it coming until it happens. And the bombshell of what Sprague says is still felt throughout the show to this point. And who knows what that will result in the future episodes. And we're just going to have to see it as it comes. And that's what makes this 190-second scene so incredible. Because it is Amphibia at its best. It is Amphibia at its purest, at its just most raw emotion, because there is nothing crazy going on. This isn't like True Colors where things get intense, things get dark, revelations are revealed, like things get emotional. I mean, this episode is emotional, but the scene does the emotions without the crazy high stakes of action-packed, crazy like episode, like stuff going on. This is just calm. It's a quiet scene. Like I said, it gets you because it doesn't have to make you feel anxious as you're going through it, the episode, as you're reaching the end of it. Instead, it just makes you feel emotional by throwing you into a sense of peacefulness, and then making you realize that this peacefulness is hiding an emotional revelation that will live on throughout the show going forward. And yeah, and we see that throughout the series as well. Like, there's been a lot of people who talk about how like when the planters are back on Earth and stuff with Anne, like Sprig tries and impress and be on Anne's mom's good side. Like, he wants to, because he sees her as like the mother figure, which he never had. And that's just beautiful. It's in this episode, it explains why. Because like, if we didn't have this 90-second scene in Hopping Mall, like, imagine how different the show would be. Like, the revelation after the rains probably wouldn't feel as shocking. Like it would come out of the blue and we'd be like, what? That's what happened to them? Instead of the situation where we learn like, oh, that's what it meant. Like, this is what's happened to them that we learn now. Like, because Sprig doesn't reveal how they die. He just reveals that they're dead. And that episode explains what happened. This episode reveals it to us. And going on from there, like, when we see Spring, and how he is with Anne's mom, it's like we'll understand why he's like that, because he sees her as the mother figure he never had. And that's just beautiful. And that's something I really want to see more in shows, like this positive parent type feeling that, Anne's parents are probably one of the best parents I've seen in a cartoon in a long time, and that's saying a lot. And I just want more shows to have such a feel to them. It's perfect. It's what I long to see on TV shows more. And Amphibia does it right. And it just keeps going from there, and I just don't know where. And yeah, it's just, Hopping Mall was everything that I never thought I needed from Amphibia, and I'm so grateful it did. It's the scene that I find myself going back and rewatching more and more and more whenever I think about it. It's a peaceful scene, like the end credits as well, like the new end credits that they use for this one episode and one episode only, like they're just magnificent. The calm piano playing over the crickets chirping of the Utopia night. It's ambience at its best, because the Amphibia end, like season 3 has had a bit of a change with the action-packed end credits with the custom animation, which is beautiful. But if there's one thing I have to admit I miss about the older Amphibia episodes, was just those calm end credits, because like they were beautiful, and this episode was probably one of the best of those end credits, and I miss it a lot. But who knows, there is still 3 more episodes left to go, and who knows what will happen in them. And essentially that's all I got in the sense, because yeah, I just wanted to just talk a little bit about this episode and just what made it so perfect. It just goes to show how one scene in a single episode can change everything. An episode that you wouldn't normally think is important ends up being just so beautiful because of one little scene. And that's just what makes Amphibia just the most don't judge a book by its cover show that is out there. You think that it's just going to be a funny little show about frogs, and that's what a lot of people used to believe about it. But no, that's not what Amphibia is. Like, the first seasons maybe make you believe that, but by the time you get to Reunion, you realize, something else is going on. And from there on out, as season 2 progresses, that, Amphibia has its moments of fun and does them well, but it also has its moments of seriousness. And that's what I feel like shows should be. Like, shows shouldn't try to be over-the-top serious. They should be able to have some fun episodes, and that's what Amphibia does best. And between the Amphibia and the Owl House, that's kind of what I prefer in terms of what Amphibia is. Like, Amphibia knows when to be goofy, when to be serious, and just have some dumb fun. Because at the end of the day, what's the point of living when there's no fun that's to be had? Because, that's what makes Amphibia great. Like, you can have their slice-of-life moments, but also have serious moments as well, packed in with goofy stuff. And that's what I think I'll miss the most about Amphibia, and what I will miss about this, because Hopping Mall was the perfect example of that. It was an emotional scene in a really fun episode. And I think that, of all things else, is what I'm going to miss the most about Amphibia, because we're now done with the fun episodes. This last episode, Fight or Flight, was the final fun episode, as Matt Braley stated. From here on out, it's all going to get emotional, and who knows where that's going to lead us to. Amphibia is almost over, and I don't know what to feel about it, because it has been almost 3 long years of just some of the best television I've ever seen since Gravity Falls, and I will miss it dearly. And I hope Amphibia gets the finale it deserves and is up there with Gravity Falls as one of the best finales to one of the best shows ever made, because Amphibia deserves it. It deserves all the praise and all the success it's gotten, because for a show that began as nothing more than people brushing it off as just a funny little kid show of frogs, it's really come a long way to getting to a point where it is up there as one of the greatest shows ever made. And I hold that opinion and belief to the fullest. And I really hope that Amphibia is able to do that with these final episodes. So yeah, thanks for watching, and let's see what Amphibia has next in store for us. Bye.